KKHT wants you to meet three of the classiest guys in real estate.
I am Chris Kelso, the maestro of mortgage.
I am Rob Cook, the godfather of real estate.
And I'm Joe Orsack, the king of credit swing. And together, we're the Real Estate Rat Pack. Much like us, real estate right now is smoking hot. So whether it's buying, selling, or owning, you need to check out the Real Estate Rat Pack.
They're here to take your calls and answer your questions live. Call now, 1-800-808-5548. And now, the Real Estate Rat Pack!
Yeah.
Oh, wait, I missed it!
You missed
What is
You
going
missed
on?
it. 3, 2, 1.
All right, so Jim Murphy's over here going, what did I do?
You
I
missed
don't
it because you were
Well, I
so
was gonna
jealous
try
of
to
me
be one
with Kobe right next to me. That's the reason why.
So we got a pretty exciting show today.
We do. We have a
And
great show today.
I have been talking with Jim Murphy and Jay Carahan for some time about let's get on the air. And of course, we have a very important election coming up. I guess you want to introduce the fact we have Teresa Kennedy in the House?
Well, we've got several people in the House. Not only do we have some great individuals going to be talking about Proposition 1, about hopefully our get out of jail free card, but the other thing,
Some of us.
I didn't proposition anybody. I just want to be clear on that.
but we also have the Rat Packettes here. How y'all doing?
Fantastic, boys.
Good morning, everyone.
I think Teresa was just processing being called a mouse,
girl.
a mouse
Yeah.
eater.
Yeah, there you go.
Whatever it is.
Whatever it was.
And Kobe
A rat
Reynolds.
packette.
Usually, and you guys missed the howl. I usually am pinching Chris, and then Joe feels his pain and howls
That's
at
what
the
it
moon,
is.
but it didn't happen.
But and then I'm the lucky one because all the ladies are over on this side.
Yes,
with
I
me.
know that.
I know.
Yeah.
I don't even know how you pulled that off.
I'm just honored to be at this end of the table here.
Hey,
I'm gonna get
exactly.
evidence
You'd
of
better
this.
evidence this.
I was stuck over here with Rob and Jay, and so I brought Kobe over on this end to balance all this guidance out over here, and then I started messing with the headphone wire. I look up, and you got her. I don't even know how that happened. It was like a magic trick.
You've got
No.
the intelligence down at that end of the table.
Yes.
Anyway, we also have Kobe Reynolds in
You are
the house,
correct,
who is,
sir.
with OneGuard, one of our great sponsors. So thank you for being here this morning.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you.
Anyway, so we're
Best home warranty in town.
Yes, we had a conversation about this one time about the quality of the warranty.
Yes,
And-
absolutely.
And it was Lee Brockstein had made a comment about that, and we're not going to bring that back up.
Yeah.
Anyhow, in the house today is my state rep from District 133, Jim Murphy. Welcome to the show.
Well, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Like I said, we've been talking for a long time about coming on the show, and he was willing to come on. And there's a couple of things. You had a nice gig with the West Chase. You were in charge of West Chase for, what'd you say, 20 years
20
now?
years,
To
yeah.
celebrate the 20-year anniversary. And so talk a little bit about West Chase, what's going on in West Chase, how close to completion is it, or
Right.
are we already revitalizing it with tearing things down and adding new?
Well, we're always revitalizing. So, West Chase started in the 70s, Rob. And so, the district came along in 95 to help that area continue to grow and also to help it redevelop. And that's really our big mission right now. There's lots of neat, cool stuff being built. We're building about 3 million square feet of office. We've got a couple thousand residential units underway. But more importantly, we're talking about knocking down old projects like Tinseltown West Chase and people replacing with higher and better use.
I miss Tinseltown.
Well, a lot of us do, but I'll tell you, now we've got thousands of jobs and millions of dollars worth of investment sitting on that same site, and our efforts at West Chase District have helped bring that about because you're right, a lot of it is built out. We're about 90+% built out, 95% occupied overall, but there are opportunities in those good areas to take out an old 2-story apartment complex and put something bigger and better in place.
Yeah, I've watching them. Of course, we listened to you, Ed Emmett, and all those people talking about how many people are moving into the Houston area. And I was looking at some stats when I was reading about Proposition 1. It said, by 2040, we're going to have 40 million people in Texas, which is an additional 18 million people. So we got to put them somewhere.
It's kind of incredible. You have 1,000 or 1,200 a day, right? And they all come with cars, I think. and they drive
Every
around.
single one of them.
According to the stats I read, everyone in Texas, everyone has 1.1 car.
Yeah, actually have more cars than we do people that drive.
Now, how do you get a .1 car, by the way?
I'm not sure.
Those are called smart cars.
Yeah, those-
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, or Priuses. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right.
That's a
So-
.2 car.
Anyway, and so in West Chase, you're about 97. Are you all doing other projects, or are you looking at other type of things around town, or?
No, we're just so happy to see what's going on there. There is always going to be growth and interest, and we talked to people the other day who want to build a very major apartment tower out there.
that'd be
So we're
awesome.
seeing some of the stuff that's sort of in the closer in areas move out our way and become more urban.
Yeah,
What's
it's my
amazing
hood.
about what's amazing about that we were talking about right before the show is 20 years ago I never forget because I for the longest time lived between Gessner and Westheimer and Derry Ashford and Richmond and Westheimer in that area. So it seemed like one day I was driving by, all of a sudden it's like, welcome to West Chase District. And I was like, wow, that's interesting when this happened. And then 20 years later, look at what's happened. I mean, I used to go to that Tinseltown all the time. Now you have these great, beautiful buildings, as you mentioned right there, but there's still a lot of opportunity, as you mentioned, even though 95% of it's built out. Still have opportunity
I officed
for
there for a long time
redevelopment.
when I was home building and developing back in the 80s. I the building with the fountain in the front.
Right.
That was my office building. It was a
Right.
great location.
Well, it's funny because the area continues to evolve as one thing moves out, something else moves in. If you have a strong area, the natural tendency is just to see that continue upgrade. So we're the classic overnight success story that took 20 years.
20 years. Yeah, 20 years. So,
I remember meeting Jim back in the early 90s when I was a member of West Houston Chamber of Commerce.
Right,
Remember
Jim.
that?
You sure
It was
do.
kind of a precursor to the West Chase movement. And I've seen a lot of growth when I was building my practice back then. I was drawn towards West Houston Chamber of Commerce to meet new people. And it really was fantastic.
it's still a very active chamber.
Yeah, no, they are. They're doing a great job for the community.
So you've got this great gig and you've got this great development, and you're all of a sudden thinking, I just don't have enough aggravation. I think I'm going to get into politics. So when did you make this decision?
Well, it's kind of funny. It's an evolution because anybody in the real estate business understands the impact of government regulations, taxes, whether it's land use policies, where you build roads, what you incentivize. And as I saw these things affecting us, it became, well, who are those guys that are doing this stuff? And who elects them? And how do they get where they are? And what I found is they're just good people that care about the community, that want to serve.
It's
And-
not the pay.
No, unless you don't need much money.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if everyone knows that, but a state rep gets $7,200 a year. So that's $600.
Yeah, Rob.
What are you doing with all the rest of the money?
And that's what I say. We don't earn that, but we get paid that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's a labor of love when you
It
do
is,
that.
and so the people that do it, and I'll tell you, we get bashed as politicians at whatever level, but most people
Some
do
of them deserve it, by the way.
Some do, but you really see people that want to see a better Texas long term, and they're willing to spend their nights and weekends getting yelled at to make it happen, because we recognize if you have that ability, you should serve.
Yeah. Well, transportation has always been kind of an issue for me, and I always kind of think about, we originally designed the gas tax to pay for our roads, and all of a sudden monies are being diverted from that fund to, of course, we had to fund the state police and things of that nature. But now we have to find that we are way behind in our infrastructure. Now we need money, and I think that's the purpose of Proposition 1.
Proposition 1 is a great idea that allows us to build roads without raising taxes and without taking any money out of the rainy day fund. But just real quick, Rob, the scenario for gas tax, if we have a little moment here, is that we're driving
This is
more.
your time.
We're driving more miles, but because we're all getting better mileage in our cars, and gas tax is per gallon, not per dollar. So when gas goes from $2 to $4, it doesn't double. In fact, you use less because it costs more. And so we're having people driving more, generating fewer dollars. And that, if I were drawing you a chart here, you would see the one line of demand moving up and the line of supply, that being dollars, moving flat, and the gap getting larger. And so we're government, Rob. We could raise taxes till the cows come home.
Yeah.
But we said, hey, wait a second. The energy industry is booming. Why not use some of these severance taxes and build roads that way? And so it's going to be about $1.7 billion a year in cash for new roads, new free roads, no toll roads, in Texas.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
There is a God.
Well, Chris, it's funny because we're kind of PTSD after the Trans-Texas Corridor. I helped lead the fight to stop that back in Senate Bill 792 a couple years ago.
I remember.
And we had to actually go back for an extra special session 2 years ago in the summer because we had that squabble over toll roads. And some people wanted them and some people didn't. We said, look, we cannot ask the voters to allow us to get tax dollars to build toll roads.
Right.
Yeah, and so we made that decision.
Well, I remember the referendum that allowed to take toll, and we're not going to talk about toll roads because that's not his bailiwick. But they had a referendum, and they did a great spin in the paper about what it was going to do. But what it did is allowed to take the revenues from one toll road to pay for other toll roads or future projects, which to me is a tax without going back to the constituency.
Right, and we've all learned a lot more about toll roads as they've gotten marched out with different entities operating them and different financial investors as part of them. And government sometimes actually does do things better than the private sector when it comes to protecting taxpayer interests, because when they talk about raising taxes on the Harris County toll roads, everybody calls their commissioners and the phones light up and the commissioners go, I was just thinking about it. I wasn't actually going to do it. And
Every
that's where you have
time,
the
every time I
control.
see Ed Emmett, he says, I don't want to talk about toll roads. Call the Toll Road Authority. Because he gets pretty bashed.
Well,
on toll
our
roads.
system in Harris County is the model for the state. It's locally controlled, right?
Right.
And so that's where you really want to have that element.
And you know what? I don't object to use tax. Basically, that's how I look at a toll. If I'm using, I don't mind paying for it. So I'm not unhappy with the toll system. We would not have had the Sam Houston Tollway without it being a toll system, period. Anyway, but let's get back to the things that you have some ability to vote upon. And Proposition 1 is of course, Houston Association of Realtors is also supporting.
Yeah, let me add something to the Prop 1 conversation, Rob, and it's what it means to me and the other members of the Harris County delegation or the Greater Houston region of legislators. You know, we have 1 out of 6 legislators from Harris County in Texas. 1 out of 6.
1 out of 6.
Yeah, 24. We ought to be swinging a pretty big bat in Austin. We don't always if we're not united. And one of the things we're trying to do right now is to bring more of those transportation dollars to Houston. So of that $1.7 billion, how much will come to Houston? I can't tell you because that decision's not been made.
I think we should get 1/6 of it.
I think we should get about 1/4 of it. If you look at
Right.
Because when you look at things like the Port of Houston, you look at our level of congestion, you look at our share of state GDP, our piece of the economy, you could argue for a larger piece. But here's my deal. People in this region have to vote for Prop 1 in good numbers. If we vote 52% for and the rest of the state votes 63%, my colleagues will say, Jim, it looks like your people don't care very much about transportation. And so we've got to make sure we all get out in Harris County and vote for Prop 1.
Yeah, and if we're going to have 18 more million people on the road, which with 1.1 car each, that's a lot of cars coming on.
Yeah, well, and the other side is, think what the Port of Houston's going to cause when we get the Panama Canal expansion. And the Port of Houston's a huge economic driver. It's great for this region. But all that increased traffic of trade and commerce, which is a great problem to have, one of our jobs as policy leaders is to identify issues before the public experience them, hopefully. Haven't quite gotten that done on traffic, but when you see it growing, you've got to get ahead of it with solutions.
Yeah. Well, Prop 1, like I say, it's important. We're getting out and stomping, the grassroots to get people to vote for Prop 1 because we need the infrastructure. And if it's not going to be another tax.
Well,
so
and that's
tell me how that works.
Well, because what we're doing is we have the opportunity to take money that would normally flow into the rainy day fund, now that it's at $8.4 billion. So when the fund was started, they thought, we ought to have a savings account of maybe $1 or $2 billion. Now it's $8 billion. And we said, okay, full, it's good. Let's take the money we're currently collecting and do something with it that's meat and potatoes, critical issue for government, and that's building roads. Let's send that. Now, many people will tell you, well, we need more. Absolutely true, and we're going to be looking for it. Stop the diversions will help. Maybe some of the sales tax on car will help. But right now, let's take a $1.7 billion bite out of what's a $4 or $5 billion need.
It's a start.
Oh, it's a tremendous start.
And it's a great start like that. And so the other thing I always like to talk about is mass transit. If the state looking at, we're talking about doing a high-speed rail between Houston and Dallas and things like that.
The beauty of the high-speed rail, it's private. And I don't really want to see our state involved in those kind of business ventures. There's plenty of people. Those are multinational companies that will invest.
You can't go from Houston to Dallas without getting government involved because you're going to have a lot of right-of-ways going through a lot of little areas. And so I don't know how.
Well, if they're willing to work with people, they can buy it. Yeah. And that's what I think is a good program. Let those good rural folks make a little money. If they have property that's in a corridor that has demand, then they should benefit from that.
Here's a little something if it doesn't make you want to go out and vote. It says Texans waste 44 hours stuck in traffic each year.
I'm not surprised at one bit.
It's time for us to move Texas forward by voting yes on Texas Proposition 1.
Well, I think there's a study out of A&M that said there's been 44 hours of delay a day, but that was A&M.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tim.
You had
to get that.
Yeah, I think we're going to kind of come up a break.
We are coming up against a break. We are having a great time. If you want to call in, ask a question, 800-808-5548 is the call-in number.
We're talking to Jim Murphy.
Talking to Jim Murphy, and I want to give a big shout-out to my mother whose birthday is today. I was that's the reason why I was running a little late this morning and giving her a big shout-out. But, Mom, happy birthday. For everybody else, stay tuned. We're going on a break. We'll be right back.
My heart won't let my feet do things that they should do. You know what? You're lovely. You know what? You're so lovely. And oh, what you do to me. I'm like an ocean